we're going to talk about some very small works today. So I'll do my best to kind of stay out of the way, but then I also invite you to come up and really get a closer look at them. So where are we today? I think it's always very, very important when we're dealing with non-Western art and we're dealing traditionally with a Western audience, or even my own art historical education was very much geared towards Western art. I think it's always important to just set a context. Where are we right now? What sort of place are we talking about? So within this gallery specifically, you can see on the wall label, we call it House and Shrine. So these are devotional artworks from Japan specifically. So when we're dealing with Japan, we're also usually dealing with the Shinto religion. And I'm going to refer to it as a religion, but we can think of Shinto as being this set of beliefs that sort of straddles religion and a code of ethics, a way of living. And I would say, number one characteristic of the Shinto religion, at least now, is its syncretic nature. S-Y-N-C-R-E-T-I-C, syncretic. What do we mean by that? Well, syncretism is sort of when you take two things that might seem diametrically opposed to each other and you put them together. And there's some sort of relationship there. It's not quite a paradox. But the point in calling Shinto a syncretic religion is it's sort of picked all these other parts of religions up and incorporated them along the way. We have this conversation a lot when we talk about a region that has been conquered or colonized by another country and has a new religion sort of imposed onto that society, and then we see some things sort of held over from the religion that used to be there making its way in. In this case, again, I mentioned Shinto religion, but you're going to see a lot of talk about Buddhism. And there's a specific relationship between Buddhism and the Shinto religion. Shinto sort of can help us, again, sort of give us a guide for how we live our lives. And then Buddhism is much more concerned with the afterlife. So that's how those two sort of play off of one another in Japanese society. And again, we're talking about Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, all being incorporated into Shinto. This is a very Japanese thing that we're talking about. This is what happened to the Japanese traditional set of beliefs when, as early as the 2nd century, the Silk Road opens. And they just start having a little bit more communication and dialogue with mainland Asia. The real influx of Buddhism in Japan happens in about the 6th centuries when it really starts gearing up and we see this mixing of beliefs happen. So what are we looking at here? Well, we are looking at portable shrines. And these are objects that could have been used by secular and religious people. So monks might have taken them when they were traveling around the country and needed something as an illustration to share with folks, but certainly for the monks and for anyone making a pilgrim or just traveling, this was a way to sort of take your religion with you. So you can almost think of it as taking, your rosary or your Bible or your Quran with you while you're traveling. It's wonderful in this new display that we have here in the new Asian court that these are able to be viewed on all four sides. And what you'll really see is from the outside, they look very unassuming. Most of these have no decoration on the outside. And so it's this wonderful sort of explosion of detail and form and color once they are opened. And we do have some different materials in here. A lot of these are made out of wood. But sometimes the wood has lacquer, sometimes it has gilding, sometimes it has paint, sometimes it's more just left as it is. And of course in the front, sort of the one that doesn't belong with the other, is carved out of ivory, which is why it's white. And it is specifically carved in the shape of a lotus flower, something we know very symbolic in Japan and has different meanings, but I'll sort of just sum it up as being symbolic of purity. So we have these portable shrines, and not trying to be schizophrenic with our talk about Shintoism, but merely just trying to illustrate how many different sects and religions that it touches upon. And I will even go so far as to say that people like Jesus, like Allah, like God, are also incorporated into the Shinto religion. In Shinto, you would often worship kami, K-A-M-I. These are spirits that live in the same realm as you and I, but they are spiritual beings, and so any gods or deities from other religions can also be considered kami and can be worshipped very comfortably in a Shinto context. So all-encompassing, right? Sounds very, very harmonious. But specifically in here, we have mostly bodhisattvas. So what do we know a bodhisattva to be? Buddhist, right? This is a being that could, if they had decided to, become totally enlightened and leave this realm, but they have decided to do what? I know my docents are here. Yes, they've decided to stay behind. They want to help their fellow man. They want to help the rest of the world and the sentient beings on it. So these are bodhisattvas, mostly, that we're seeing in here. And we have a couple of different types in particular. So I'm gonna come in front here just for a second and talk about some of these folks. Again, the way that these were displayed, some of them we don't talk about a whole lot, and this one in particular, we have the doors almost all the way closed, so you can kind of get a sense of what it looks like closed. But some of these figures, we have the cases open because there's interesting stories behind the specific beings that are depicted. Right here, this portable shrine is depicting Bishamonten, B-I-S-H-A-M-O-N-T-E-N. And this is a figure that actually comes to the Shinto religion, its origins in India. And this is a warrior king, we might say. He's one of the 4 kings that protect all of heaven in the Shinto religion. And there's 4 kings for the 4 cardinal directions. So they each are in charge of one of the directions, Bishamonten being in charge of north. And he is called the one who hears everything. He hears everything that's going on in the world. Typical of other Buddhist statues, you'll see him stepping on this creature that does symbolize ignorance. So he's sort of squashing ignorance. And he's usually holding a couple of very specific objects. He's usually holding a pagoda, and he's holding a spear. He is the protector of the treasures of Japanese culture, and they are supposedly housed in this large pagoda in heaven. And he is there at the door to share those treasures with the worthy and protect those treasures from the unworthy. So he is, you can sort of call him St. Peter if you want, but he's there to sort of judge who is worthy and who is not worthy. And so we see him always in that guise. And specifically here, we've made a note on the label that the actual, the details, the hand gestures, the creature it's standing on, we have believe we have traced this back to a very important relic that came from a king of Korea. It was a gift to the Japanese people, again, in the 6th century, right when Buddhism is starting to ramp up in Japan, which it had already done so in Korea. But we see that's not the only depiction of him. We also see him right down here in this portable shrine that is opened. We have a bodhisattva on his lotus petals in the middle here. But then here is where the decoration is really so fascinating to look at. So we have 2 people here, and on this side, I know some of you can't see it because it's on the other side of this door, but we have another depiction of Bishamonten. Again, very easy to pick him out. He has his little pagoda, he has his spear, and he is right across from this other figure, Fudo Myo, F-U-D-O-M-Y-O-O. And yes, that is definitely an Anglo pronunciation of that. And he is often depicted with fire all around him, fire being another symbol of purity. And specifically in this context, a burning away of all your earthly desires. And he is holding a couple of objects too. He usually has a sword, sometimes a spear, and a rope. The spear and the rope are all about helping him accomplish his vigilante work. He's going out there and he's finding bad people, he's finding demons, and he's either slaying them or he's capturing them with his rope and taking them away. So we have these two figures, and they're kind of gnarly warriors, really. And we're talking about Buddhism, which is a very pacifist religion. So what is that disconnect there? The reason I have talked about these figures in particular is they are really great illustrations of this mixing that I was talking about between Shinto religion and that traditional set of beliefs and Buddhism. There are some parts that maybe don't quite make sense. Fudo Myo is usually standing on something very solid. You'll see him on a rock or a mountain or a cliff or something like that, but he's always grounded on the earth somehow. He is a symbol of unwavering faith. He cannot be shaken. He is a very sturdy, solid character. He is mean. He's usually got one eye, his left eye is usually looking in a totally different direction than the other. He's usually got this grimace with one fang coming down and one fang coming up, furrowed eyebrows. He is meant to be a very mean character. As I said, his job is to go out there and find bad things and bad people and rounds them up. So he is just a mean dude out there, and he's always depicted as a very ugly creature, we could say. Part of this sort of inability for us to fully separate out maybe Shinto and Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, is because the first and second oldest written histories that we have of Japan, and again I'll give you my pronunciation of them, but we have the Kojiki from 711 AD and the Nihon Shoki from 720 AD. These are, as I said, the first extant written histories of Japan. They were commissioned by the emperors at the time, and they talk about the founding, sort of the origin of Japan, sort of when these islands were finally created by the gods in the sea. And in those creation stories, we have both Buddhist and Shinto aspects of the story included. So right from the very beginning, our earliest known history of Japan, these two religions are very much intermingled. The last thing I want to talk about is just sort of a nice nod to the museum. We do get questions sometimes about these extraneous little hooks and things that are on these objects. If you come up closely, you will see that all of them indeed have these, they are metal hooks or some sort of device that holds them in place. Everything in this museum has to be earthquake proof. And I want to give a very special recognition to a member of our staff named James Gilo. He works on the exhibitions and collections team, and his job is to take this ugly piece of brown metal and not only bend it into shape, but then paint it so it looks like the rest of the object. It's an incredible skill, and it's really wonderful to watch him in his studio downstairs make these things. And they are the reason, he is the reason that we can even display these objects safely. So that's a little bit about these portable Buddhist shrines, and as I said, they're very tiny, so I hope that you come up and actually get a much better look at them. Thank you very much for coming.